I've got the PA27JCV ProArt monitor from ASUS. Why ProArt? Well, color calibration, higher end monitor, adjustable stand. If you really want to see the highest of the high end, check out the ASUS OLED monitor, OLED, 32 inch. This is a 27 inch 4K IPS. This one comes pre-calibrated, and this one is quite a bit more affordable. This uses IPS type display technology, which is older, but not really. Like, IPS has evolved. It used to have a relatively slow pixel response time, but things have gotten really quick with improvements in the technology, which is great. 99% DCI-P3, and color calibrated out of the box, rotates, DisplayPort HDMI, 96 watts of USB-C power delivery with a built-in KVM, 3-year warranty. There's a lot to like in the feature set. Let's see if it lives up. That's nice. That's an attractive matte finish. We've got a 4-way hat switch on the front with a number of buttons. The bottom edge, we've got a USB Type-C, USB Type-A. Got the USB-C with DisplayPort power delivery, USB-C port, regular USB-C port, 2 more Type-A, headphone, 1 full-size DisplayPort, 1 HDMI, power with a hardware rocker switch. Now this is a built-in VESA 100 by 100 millimeter mount, so you can use that, and that's all fine, well and good. But it also comes with its own stand, which is a premium stand. Now in the gaming monitors, they add a little threaded hole on the top of this so you can mount your webcam to the top. I wish they'd done that on the ProArt, because everybody's got to deal with Teams these days, right? Although it might have been a little difficult for your camera to stick up and over the monitor in the fully top position. And as a tall person, I really like that the stand goes all the way up. When you first plug in the monitor, you're going to get this energy saving pop-up. This is, I think, kind of an example of overregulation. It's like, oh, would you like to remain in power saving mode? No, I would not. Thank you. 27 inches, 2560 by 1440. That's the perfect resolution at 100% scaling, but this is 5K. It's a doubling. 2560 by 1440 doubled in each direction. This is 5K. So you could run this at 200%, but it's going to be extra crispy. It's going to look super sharp, and 5K. 5K 60 hertz. It supports 60 and 30 hertz, but 5K, and it works great with Linux. So KVM functionality, you can hook up a laptop or a tablet in addition to your desktop computer, and the monitor makes it easy to flip between your desktop computer and your laptop, and will supply power. Now our little GPD-Win laptop here, it's 65 watts, so it'll work great with the 96 watt USB-C output. A lot of modern gaming laptops are 100 watts and beyond. This is only 96 watts. It could be okay for your use case. You could also plug both in, because this provides USB and display connectivity to the display. So you could still use a USB-C charging power brick and then a second USB-C connection to the monitor for whatever, for KVM usage. And the KVM on this monitor is fairly functional. It's not quite as robust as a standalone KVM, but it's a really good value if you are flipping back and forth between a desktop computer, well, an HDMI or DisplayPort computer, and say a laptop, or even an HDMI console, a DisplayPort connection, and a laptop. But this is ProArt. ProArt doesn't really, you can use it for gaming, but higher refresh is nice, but this is also 5K, so 5K 60 hertz. Occasional gaming, light gaming, yeah, this is a really nice display because of the redonkulous resolution. IPS monitors, they're known for backlight bloom, or they don't really look super great in the dark because the backlight is on and then the display has to be on. But check out this display. This is best in class output for IPS. I mean, this is modern IPS, so ASUS has taken steps to minimize those kinds of downsides of the IPS technology in this display. Like, that's a thing with IPS technology, but that doesn't mean that we can't improve the technology, so that's fantastic. In my testing, I found the DisplayPort connection to be the most stable for what that's worth, especially when we were running at full 5K and doing all the sorts of stuff. There's also display HDR 500, so it can do HDR 500, which is a nice feature. In terms of color profile, I was happy to see that the Kalman verified calibration on this display basically lined up with its out-of-the-box display, which is great. There are on-screen color presets you should be aware of, though, so you have to set sRGB or Adobe RGB if you want it to be, that actual profile. This is also supporting Rec 709 right out of the box. You can pick the Rec 709 profile from the monitor OSD, and then boom, Rec 709. I was a little disappointed to find out that the KVM wouldn't work with 3 inputs, and this is probably down to the USB. You have to use the USB-C for one of your 2 KVM inputs because it needs a USB channel, and then the other USB input on this can be used for the second stream. So that's what it means in the OSD when it says upstream 1 and upstream 2. You can say USB-C and HDMI, or USB-C and DisplayPort. But the USB connection on that will have to be USB-C for display and USB, plus DisplayPort and the other USB for the other USB channel, because your peripherals will connect to the monitor, and so it'll switch your mouse and keyboard between the computers as long as you have both computers connected to your display. And there's not 3 inputs on the display, so you couldn't pick between, say, console and computer and laptop. And with a console, you don't really need the USB connection, so this could be fixed in a software update or something like that. So like upstream 3, or just setting a quick shortcut so that you hit this button and you can flip over to an Xbox or a PlayStation or something like that, because that's going to have a wireless controller. It's not going to go through the USB channel anyway. You can kind of do that, but it would be nice if it was a little bit more organized in terms of the user experience for that. But like I say, I don't think gamers necessarily, at least the primary use for gaming, are necessarily going to pick up a ProArt monitor. I have in the past, but you know, again, strange person. The OSD also tells you how much power is being delivered through the USB-C port, in my case 54 watts for the little mini laptop, which is right in line with what I expect. And so that'll help you with troubleshooting your diagnostics, because not all USB-C cables are created equal, and sometimes you have a USB-C cable that just is not going to work beyond 35 watts. So try to use the USB-C cable that came with the monitor, because it's a nice one, but you know, beyond that, your mileage may vary. So overall, that's been a quick look at the PA27JCV from ASUS 5K. Alright, I want to walk you through our chase squares, burn-in testing, all that sort of thing. Because this monitor, it's IPS, and it's great. It's a top-shelf IPS monitor, but there's definitely some oddities. First off, the text scrolling on this is a 60 Hz refresh rate monitor, keep in mind. But the text scrolling on this, you know, it's the Alice in Wonderland text. This is surprisingly good for an IPS monitor. But this isn't quite as good as I was expecting, because the chase squares test was one of the best IPS results we've ever had. So this test turns on squares in sequence, and a 60 Hz monitor can refresh in 16.6 milliseconds. So this lights up a square and turns off a square once every 16 milliseconds. I've got my shutter speed set really high on my camera, so that the idea is you want to capture 2 frames on at once, or 2 squares on at once. You can sort of see one turning off and one turning on, and that gives us some idea of what the true response time of the panel is. Most of the time, I'm not able to do that. In most of the frames, one square being on, one square being off is exactly how it should be, which means that the panel itself is much faster than 16 milliseconds, which is great. Occasionally, we do get multiple squares lit up, but this panel's fast. It's surprisingly fast. Now, the physical DisplayPort input also supports variable refresh rate, as does HDMI. But DisplayPort over USB-C, there's no menu option for that, so you can't use FreeSync with USB-C. I thought this was really odd, and that brings me to the next feature, actually testing the KVM setup. So switching between our minis forum connected with USB-C and our laptop connected with USB-C and HDMI, it's a little squirrely. The on-screen menu settings are not perfectly straightforward. For the 2 input KVM selection, there's auto and manual, at least for input number 1. If you set input number 1 to auto, you may have to fiddle with the USB setting. I had a very strange experience where the USB mouse switching, so my keyboard and my mouse are plugged into a USB port on the monitor, and so this will switch my keyboard and mouse between the Minis Forum PC and our ROG Flow 13. It would work until the monitor initialized, the HDMI monitor initialized, then the USB would stop working. It turned out this is a combination of on-screen display settings, and so if you run into this, I would suggest that you use the reset function to reset it, and then set input 1 explicitly to auto and input 2 to be the other one. If you had set the inputs manually and reversed them, it seems like it disables USB as soon as the monitor initializes on the HDMI side. This is just the monitor OSD not being perfectly straightforward as to what it's doing. I think you can also see maybe an anomaly as we scroll through gaming. So look at the gaming setup here. This is meant to be like a Dota. This is, again, you know, UFO monitor simulation test tools. But what I'm doing here is taking the camera and sort of raking it across the display at roughly the same speed that the image is scrolling. Even at 60 Hz, it should be a pretty sharp image. It looks like it's got a little bit of a stutter or something to it. Now I know there's a stutter setting in the menu there, but that is turned off. This seems to be better on the DisplayPort interface and worse on the USB-C and HDMI interface, but this is somewhat subjective. I don't really know what to make of this. Maybe this can be resolved in a firmware update. By comparison, I did another review of the Butter for Your Eyes OLED display, and here is that same test across the OLED set at 60 Hz. Now it's even smoother if you set the refresh rate to be higher, but you can see there's a clear visual difference here. And with as fast as this panel is, and as good as the text scrolling looks, this definitely suggests to me that there's something going wrong in the image post-processing here. This is also a little bit better with variable refresh rate turned on, and turned on in the Adrenalin drivers, in this case the testing that I'm doing with an AMD-based GPU. It didn't seem to be AMD or NVIDIA related in terms of, oh, one GPU versus the other, does this actually look good in the browser, what's going on with this? But full screen, variable refresh rate at the desktop, yeah. Oh, and the dynamic refresh rate nonsense that's part of Windows 11, that was also disabled. But these are really, really, really minor nits that I'm just pointing out in case somebody is like super crazy person like me with this monitor. I also waited, I've had this monitor for a while, so this is probably an early firmware, and I was surprised there's no firmware updates on ASUS's website. There is for the OLEDs, although there's some bugs in the OLEDs there. If you run your OLED at a very low brightness, it will auto dim to a much higher brightness. This is something Alan Malventano and I have both encountered with newer firmwares. It doesn't do it on firmware 1001, but 1003 and forward, it's a little weird. So that's on the OLED monitor, not this one. This one overall is a solid business experience, and it's a competent gaming monitor, and it's 5K, and it's less than $1,000 US, at least for now, tariffs, imports, whatever. So this is a good deal right now for this much monitor. 5K in this form factor, it's a beautiful image and beautiful color accuracy and a lot of really cool features and a nice stand and everything else. So ASUS has done overall a really good job with this monitor. I like it. I'm Wendell Level 1. This has been a quick look at this amazing 5K monitor, ProArt from ASUS. If you're in the market for a monitor, check it out. It's definitely worth considering. I'm Wendell Level 1. I'm signing out. You can find me in the Level 1 forums.